easy to call, Geo, because we've not really called all too many of the games tonight. You know, we've sort of said what we think, and it may or may not have come true, but I really can't call this one. We saw NIP play on Consulate yesterday against Team 1, and the worst things that were sort of glaringly obvious as problems. But we then saw other things that NIP did that were fairly unstoppable. One of those was Valkyrie, and the fact that they play every single round on the defense, and the fact that it has remained open here and now.
Yeah, Psycho was a pretty unforgiving Valkyrie. Would not be shocked to see that come out again. NIP were significantly better on their defense than their attack yesterday, and starting on defense today is going to give them a big boon, I think. But one thing that I would also like to bring up is that in Furia's game against MIBR, which they played on Clubhouse, one thing that Furia were very effective at doing on their attack was isolating roamers and really dealing with a roam clear very, very well. Now, I would love to see something very similar happen here for Furia against NIP. It's a different kind of map, Consulate, and the way it's played and defended is different to what you would see in Clubhouse. And with NIP being, I think, a lot more pugnacious at the moment than MIBR, just because of the issues that MIBR are going through right now, there is a chance that it's way less easy to be able to effectively deal with a roam in the same way. But because Furia was so good at it yesterday, I do want to see if we can even see any remnant of that today. Because they were very, very good at just being able to surround individuals, move in on them, and then immediately go on to the next victim. I think if they can do that here and they can remove people like Muzi and Pino, that would be excellent. And I mean, actually, in fact, it's not Psycho who's going to be playing Valkyrie today. It's going to be Muzi. So if they can get rid of Muzi early, great. You kind of get a double whammy from that. And because Furia have banned out Mozzie as well, you're not going to be seeing him play that character at all, which I think he did yesterday.
Yeah, Mozzie was another one that was heavily played, and it all sort of adds into that information game. But it is strange, as you say, to see Muzi on the Valkyrie.
Did Heist fall off a building?
I think. Did he? It looked like he went to repel, and then he just all of a sudden was 1 HP'd.
I heard the sound cue of IQ being like, ah.
That was a good rendition.
Thanks.
Are you secretly the voice artist for IQ?
Dude, I wish, that'd be cool.
That would be cool. Yeah, not sure what went on there, but Highs is going to be one shot, which is unfortunate for him. But we move. Psycho going to be playing the Echo this time, as he's got that similar capability to gather information. But if you'd have said, you know, if you'd have watched NIP, and many of you may have watched NIP play yesterday against Team 1, and then you look at the composition from yesterday and look at the composition from today, it's kind of night and day different. And NIP's defenses yesterday were really good. So it's kind of strange to see them changing so much stuff up.
Yes, and I think that's a good thing too, because it shows, you know, your ability to be versatile, right? I like the fact that NIP, they've set their defense up very much facing out towards the admin side of the building. They know that Furia are looking to come in that way. They've got the shields present towards long desk. This is a really nice C4 and probably gonna catch out Eyes. Yes, it did. His 1 HP was not enough to hold him back from the cold claws of death and immediately removed off the board for Furia. Not great, and that was a really nice C4 from Muzi. Another one of the great things about Valkyrie. Psycho's going to be adding on to a kill onto Rare too, which is going to make it so much harder to open up something like, for example, the meeting wall from behind, right by where the clash is of Kamikaze. That makes it so much harder to actually reach onto the site itself.
Refire through there from Fantasy as he actually finishes off Kamikaze. Pino going to be inside of the connector. Doesn't have a great deal of health to be playing around with. 25 seconds left here as Furia are really starting to make this push count. What a shot from Miracle, hitting Julio with the one tap there. Still able to hold on to this long desk. This yokai drone could be very important indeed. Miracle is going to attempt to plant. Is the yokai drone in position? It is going to get shot out. Every angle being covered here by FURIA. 3 versus 2 now. As we enter a post-plant, Muzi and Psycho have to try and push on up and retake. It's going to be super difficult. There is a player outside on the balcony. We do have Miracle led prone directly on the diffuser as well. Muzi, he tries to aggress on through. He wasn't anticipating the player in the corner. Last kill comes through as a trade. Beautiful start here for FURIA.
And given the early kills that NIP got in that round, I don't think you would have necessarily expected FURIA to be the team that won that one out. But the fact that, as you say, they had every angle covered as they pushed on forward ensured that the yokai drone was down, which facilitated their plant. Even though it wasn't exactly the same way that they managed to isolate roamers that I referred to from their MIBR game, it was a very similar thing where they watched out for all the different directions from which a defender could come, being prepared for any eventuality, and capitalizing on the things that did happen. That's something that FURIA did really, really well yesterday, and it looks like they're continuing through with that one. NIP are going to be heading down into the basement this time and changing up their operator lineup as a direct result, although Muzi is still going to be present on the Valkyrie. As we've mentioned a couple of times, we highly doubt that is going to change. And I do suspect that that is why you're also seeing an IQ be brought for a second time on the side of FURIA. They knew that they weren't going to be banning out Valkyrie since they'd already planned to ban Mozzie. So they knew that they should be prepared for the fact that NIP would bring her every single round. Now, hopefully, Highs doesn't die as early as he did in that last round. Whether it's from falling off a building, whether it's from being C4'd from below, whatever it was, he got taken down really early last time. So that would be a great, really strategical adaptation, is to not do that again.
See how FURIA want to try and approach this after starting off pretty strongly. I think, you know, Gio, is that the first time that we've seen NIP not get the opening round?
Ooh, maybe, yeah.
Because NIP is such a momentum-based team, and Julio himself has spoken of this multiple times in interviews, that they really try and get into the heads nice and early of their opponents, and they come out with these more aggressive standpoints, and we've seen them go for entirely different compositions in round one and then just play entirely different siege for the remainder of that sort of half, whichever it is, attack or defense. That's the first time that NIP haven't started off the game with a round win. Now, it's not that significant in the grand scheme of things, but it's again a first, and we're going to get more of them as the stage moves on because of how, you know, well they started things off. But things initially not going in their favor could be a bit of a swing here toward FURIA.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it, especially as Consulate has been a very odd map for NIP historically. However, I don't think it's fair to write them off just because of one opening round. Especially as a lot of that round did look like it could have gone NIP's way. Now, Kamikaze's trying to have a look at these black eye cameras, but that specific one is going to be immediately found and shot out by Highs. You can hear the garage door being opened, but no one yet has been caught out. The yokai drone right behind the shield here on pipes, trying to see if anyone was peeking their heads through, but the answer to that was no.
Lender has intel here. He knows that somebody is going to be playing inside a bathroom. A slow peek around from Psycho is going to be enough to take down Fantasy. Unfortunately for him, he will be out of action here. There's a lot of denial knocking around as well on the side of NIP here. They've got 3 nitro cells and the yokai drones. And FURIA haven't done anything about this vertical control. They've not been able to get themselves in above. Kamikaze can move one of these yokai drones in now. There is going to be a Thatcher, which could be used to try and disable, but with only 15 seconds left or so, the C4s are going to start flying, and the first will land onto Highs. Rare is trying to search out for any of the players on the side of NIP, but they're really not giving the game away here, as they're playing very conservative indeed. He will find one onto Julio. Miracle doubles down. 3 seconds left. 3 versus 2. But the kills keep coming on in. With the diffuser cold on the ground, it was always going to be a tough ask with that much denial and with how patiently NIP played.
One of the really big problems for Furia in that round was that they couldn't get an early pick from which they could launch themselves into the site. So we actually had Lendo, who was present on the yellow stairs, who tried to peek down just before the garage door was breached. He couldn't see anybody, so he backed off. Garage door gets breached. You try to peek in, but they're being very careful because they know that all 5 members of NIP are still alive. You also had presence on pipes and a yokai drone in there as well. It's really hard as an attacking team to actually push your way into garage if you haven't weakened the enemy team in any way. They can come in from basically anywhere. They didn't have an upstairs presence, so there was no one holding on in through piano, for example. You didn't have anyone pushing down Visa to try and pressure the site from behind. There was none of that. So if you've all got to walk in from essentially the same direction and you haven't taken any of the defenders down, that's really risky. And you can tell by the how trepidatious Furia were to even walk in through the door that was a real problem. And actually, there were some certain moments in that round where you could see that NIP could sense their fear, and as a direct result, pushed on up. I mean, Julio got really aggressive towards the end because he knew he could. So that was the big problem for Furia. I think if they'd have gotten the opening pick, or if they'd gotten an early kill onto NIP, maybe we would have seen that round be approached with more confidence.
Let's see if Furia are able to regain a bit more of that confidence now as they're going back to a side that they have done well at previously. It's where they were able to win round number 1. They really did a good job of singling out, generating the crossfires, and this push from the admin side worked very well for them. It was in part down to a couple of good gunfights. And that's potentially the main reason why we've seen NIP happy to go back here, is that if those gunfights don't go in the favour of Furia, if Miracle's unable to land those beautiful one-tap headshots that he got, it does stand a little bit more in NIP's favour. But so far so good. The push is established inside of admin now, and they can look to start to edge and move on forward. Big change on the side of NIP being the kamikaze switcheroo. He has opted for a clash. We talk regularly about how NIP opt for shields when the going gets tough. I mean, the going isn't really that tough just yet, but it just gives them so much information to play off.
I mean, Kamikaze played a lot of Clash yesterday on Consulate, but what we found in that game against Team 1 was that he was being distracted a lot at certain windows. Team 1 really had a strong window presence that was drawing a lot of his attention. Oh, nice first kill onto Julio. But this time, Furia aren't really doing that. We're not seeing a lot of the attackers hanging around on windows, certainly not more than they need to. And part of that is because they're looking to come in through the admin side, and they're doing very well at it as well, taking the first 2 opening kills and not giving any up to NIP. 3, Ollie.
Make
4.
it 4. Are they going to get the flawless round? It is all now down to Kamikaze. A clash with a shield to win an ace clutch. It never looks good, does it? Lender, he's going to find the final frag. A flawless round there for Furia, as they were able to come up with all of those kills. And wow, they take down NIP. Picking up another round here, regaining that lead. Now the tricky bit comes, because Furia have proved that they can consistently win rounds upstairs. NIP have won a round downstairs in the garage, but they can't go back there just yet. So we need to see something different. It means we are going to see press and lobby.
Yeah, I think NIP have had it proven to them at this point that they're not going to be quite as strong at holding CEO as they maybe thought. And to kind of continue the point that I was making in that last round, I think a lot of it is because Furia are doing admin pushes rather than yellow stairs pushes, which is what we saw Team 1 do. NIP feel a lot more prepared to deal with yellow stairs. And it's not that they don't know what they're doing in trying to hold admin. They've done a pretty decent job at setting up defensively to actually do that. The actual execution on it, however, has not been enough. So hopefully for them, moving down to press and lobby is going to give them some of that. And they will likely have a bit more of a roam, and you can see the fact that we've got a Melusi, we've got a Vigil. Once again, we've got Valkyrie. This time it's going to be Pino on Valkyrie. That I suspect that they will lean into that. They want to cause as much disruption and time wasting to Furia as they can, knowing full well that Furia are, at the very least, going to have to take control of meeting. If you can make that difficult, then you can make it very hard for them to take the site itself. Question is, if that's where Furia's strengths have been historically, is it going to be as hard as NIP are wanting to make it for them?
Already we're seeing these changes come through into the lineup that NIP are bringing. Now, an interesting point to note is that they haven't actually got a Jaeger or a Wamai this round. They've gone back to a very classic NIP lineup of Pino on the Valkyrie, Psycho on the Vigil, and they're really trying to get back to their, not roots of Consulate, but do what has worked exceptionally well for them in the past, and very recently in the past, because they have tried a couple of new things today. They've tried some sort of operator change arounds and some compositions that, you know, whilst we've seen them, it isn't their tried and true and tested Consulate. Now, Furia have come and shown that they are happy to contend here on this map. And it's a map that there's a lot of footage on as well, of course, with it being a map that both of these teams have played quite a lot. Then it makes sense that they're both going to be very prepped moving on into it. You can see some aggression here from Julio. Oh, we got the glimpse of the head. He's going to go for the jump out. He takes a shot in return, but he knocks Fantasy off that repel. Kamikaze, he's been found down. Unsure if he's going to get picked off or if the sands of time will take him. Honestly, could have been beneficial to leave him alive. And the reason that I say that is it's one less person to man the cameras. Now NIP have somebody to jump back onto those cameras and provide a little bit of that information. Julio, he's going to be able to shut down Lender as NIP reclaim a lead.
What I find really funny about this, he's still got the shotgun out. Oh, okay, finally removed. I was going to say what I find really funny is because they don't have a Jaeger or Wamai, typically you would see a lot of that kind of utility be invested into meeting because people will throw projectiles in to try and clear out the player in there, or at least the shield. So the fact that Julio had to get aggressive almost makes up for that, right? He had to do it with the shotgun because he's not being protected by that kind of utility, which would make it easier for an attacker potentially to take the room. Well, it looks like Miracle has gained that control after killing Julio. But it is a 3 versus 3, so there's no man advantage here. They want to ensure that Bathroom is clear or at least smoked off. Psycho's going to have to push on forward if he wants to see in front of it, but the default plant spot is where the plant's going to go down. Pino was right there, though, and ready to deal with it.
Pino's been allowed to stay there for far too long. Eventually, we'll get wall banged on out highs. Can he cover this from above? Miracle going to reattempt the plan. Oh, no, unfortunate stuff. Great idea from Furia, but they just came victim to time and two NIP players that really weren't missing those shots. The final kills there coming in from both Psycho and Muzi as they level things up 2 rounds apiece. A round where there were opportunities for Furia. I think they just got bogged down in the details a little bit too much. We move once again to Garage. Now this is a site that we did see NIP win by quite a large margin. We could be seeing a very close game develop here, Gio.
I would love to see that. I mean, so far it's been, you know, 1 round each, alternating. What's the word? Alternating.
You okay?
No. Anyway. Cool. We'll forget about that one. Yes. Now, I actually really like this change that Furia have made. They've decided to bring along a Zero who's got Argus cams, and the reason I really like that is because they lacked information about what was happening deep in the inside of the basement floor. So what was happening in security, what was happening in kitchen, for example, right? That's why they really struggle to get that opening pick, or they struggle to actually weaken NIP at all. I think they need to have more focus on the upstairs as well, and I would like to see Lender doing a bit of work to ensure all of these relevant floors are open. But if they can use the Argus cams to get a nice kill onto NIP early, it's going to make it much easier for them to actually breach onto the site, which was what they really struggled with last time.
The Argus cams could be a big addition to that information, and especially when it comes to trying to gain a bit more of an idea about what's going on. There isn't as many C4s this time on the side of NIP. They've only got 2, and I think previously they'd brought 3. But still, 2 C4s, plenty to deny, and especially when you start thinking about stopping a push. We're going to get to see where these Argus cams are being used, able to gather a bit of intel as to Pino's whereabouts. With the hatch open, he's likely going to be able to drop, but he is in fact getting pinched there. Psycho comes to his rescue, manages to take down Rare, and not really the operator that FURIA could afford to lose. They've lost the hard breacher, and I doubt that Garage Wall has already been opened.
It is an interesting one because they're spending a lot of time, you know, giving attention to the upstairs floor. They're about halfway through the round, so it's not the end of the world, but it does mean that if you lose someone like that, you don't have them for later on. You don't have them for the job that they're required to do. Now, Rez, ooh, nice jump out straight onto Fantasy. Psycho's got to try and get back in the building, but he seems to do so safely. And in fact, it's Pino who'll be taking a bunch of damage. Lender gets a kill, but there's a C4 back in return onto him. And it's very messy between these two teams with really no one touching the basement yet.
Still a minute and 10 left for FURIA to make something happen, but you do worry for them in a 4 versus 2. Muzi able to challenge aggressively here onto the stairs. We have an indication that someone's been caught in a goo mine. That's going to be Highs. Miracle looking to push his way down. Wasn't anticipating Kamikaze playing on Black Car. That's going to be the diffuser cold. And even though there's a minute, you do start to get the impression that this is an NIP round. 1 versus 4 here for Highs to try and make happen. Can't even find the first. He had a chance through the vertical. Even then, he would have had Pino to deal with inside a garage. NIP really locking things off downstairs. Now, Gio, the big question starts to come. Are we either going to see split, or are we going to see NIP go back up to that top floor again?
Yeah, I mean, they're looking to go to top floor at the moment. I would have been surprised if NIP had gone to Teller's Archives. It's not really a site they like that much, I don't think, Ollie. And for them, even though they've gone here twice already and lost both times, I think they have a solid idea of, you know, what it is they want to do, and every time they go back, they feel like they can improve. Now, that's for basically any of us to turn around and decide for ourselves if we think that that is smart or if we think that it is dumb, but NIP don't think it is dumb. They think it is smart. And I'm not going to argue with that. You know, if that's where they feel comfortable, if that's where they feel the most prepared, great. And they have made adaptations to what they're bringing as well. Psycho, once again, he's going to be on Vigil. This is the first time that we'll have seen a mirror be brought for this site. Kamikaze is still going to be remaining on the Clash. Now, they've known every single time at this point that FURIA have been coming in from the east side. The good old admin take, which fell out of favor a decent amount of time ago, and it feels like we're on a little journey to the past. And already you can see that one of the black mirrors of the mirror has been set up in Printer. So that's directly looking into admin. They will have immediate information and intel about players who have come into admin, plus the soft wall beside it means that they can be just shot straight through it. So NIP are really fortifying these walls that look into that point of ingress that FURIA are going for. Now, FURIA could, of course, counter-adapt and go in through yellow stairs and completely nullify this. FURIA have made their own adaptations. They're bringing a Ying. But it doesn't look like that's what they're going to go for. Oh.
It's kind of nice switching up here from both sides in that FURIA have gone, yep, you know, we're more than happy to start thinking about challenging on from the west side now, and we can take that yellow stairs control. The fact that we've barely seen NIP playing a Jaeger or a Wamai is kind of a godsend at this point for FURIA, because all they're going to have to deal with is Aruni gates. Rare bringing the Ying is a really good read into all of that. It does, of course, depend on how well you can still take yellow stairs. There is the small matter of Kamikaze playing on the Clash to deal with. Psycho, though, Gets himself downed. A nade coming through, likely from Lender there. Kamikaze seeing some shots as well. He may be attempting to get himself a little bit closer to his teammate for the revive, but this pressure that Furia is able to apply is certainly working for the time being. Fantasy with the hop-in finishes off the downed player. Miracle, he picks one up of his own. 2 kills going into Furia's favor here, and it's really causing NIP a little bit of cause for concern.
None of the Candelas have been used yet either, so those are still in pocket and absolutely could come out at any moment. I feel like a bit of a fool. Oh, he was right there! What? I feel like a bit of a fool saying that it didn't look like they were going to go for a yellow push, because as soon as I finished saying it, I realized that actually that probably was what they were going to do. Muzi is still getting kills onto the players of Furia, so he's evened up the man count. But just still remember, NIP, a lot of their utility has been designed to be on the east side. They do now have the advantage after Kamikaze secures a kill for himself. In go the smokes, there's the Candela. This could be the linchpin.
Kind of a shame for Furia that they found themselves in this disadvantaged situation now. Julio eventually will be taken down there by Lender as Lender gets himself in. There's live information here for both of the players on the side of NIP to work with. Both Kamikaze and Muzi can start to pressure Lender as he is the last man standing. Draws out for the SMG, puts some shots down but can't land the finishing blow onto Muzi. The clash is his undoing. That was a 5 versus 3 that Furia have just managed to lose. A huge clutch up there from Muzi and Kamikaze.
Look at that. NIP's decision to go back for a third time wasn't dumb. We can say that now for sure. And actually, I think the thing that made it work for them wasn't necessarily that their adaptation was the best, because of course their adaptation was to focus more on admin. But Furia predicted that that was going to happen, so they decided to go in through from the west side. And I suspect it had a lot more to do with the fact that Furia were more underprepared for a west side push than they would have been for an east side push, than it did necessarily to do with NIP's defense. And I think Muzi played exceptionally well in that round, especially. But when you've got things like a guy on upside down rappel on CEO and he's just in pure vision, that was the easiest headshot of Muzi's career. And Muzi makes headshots look easy. So there were mistakes from Furia's side on that. Maybe a bit disappointing for them. But now they're on the defense, so things could change.
Things could change. We did see certainly NIP's fortunes change yesterday when they got themselves onto the defense. Things weren't as smooth for them. Maybe just maybe we will see them start to sort of change that a little bit. I think they just sort of fell under the same traps that a lot of teams fall under on this map, and that is that your utility can be often quite pressured. So we'll see how they perform as we get on into the round. Lender opening up a few options there for some early aggression. Sight is going to be downstairs in the basement. Good old garage. Again, it forces that entire top floor roam clear. But with the Jackal, Psycho can kind of expedite that process a little bit.
Still everyone's standing at this point, but we are very early in the round. And as you mentioned, the Jackal can expedite the process. You can use him? Yep. To hunt down all of those people. It'll be Fantasy the first one to fall. One of those key roamers, Julio removing him off the map. We spoke at the start about how much value Fantasy brings. He's had a bit of a tougher time in this game so far. Lender is going to have the opportunity to be picked up, though, by Rare. What a good friend. So that means there's still 4 players remaining here on Furia. Psycho avoiding the C4 while he's trying to do a Jackal track. So he'll be remaining safe for now.
Kind of strange to see Furia invest so much into this roam when the site is such a strong place, and kind of contrasts how NIP play this site, where they really only play with maybe Psycho and Pino upstairs. Now we've got ourselves into a position where Furia look to have spread themselves a little bit more thinly, and they certainly haven't got the same level of denial left in pocket. They've only got 1 C4 left in the hands of Rare. Control of Piano has been given up now over to NIP, and there's a minute to work with here, so plenty of time for them to start ripping open that floor and finding out those angles.
There's the floor beginning to be ripped open. Rez's going to send up a C4, but for now it's just going to remain pre-placed as no one has actually moved over to antechamber just yet, which is where that C4 is. They just know that that's kind of the way it's going to go. Hatch open, so he's got to watch out for that too, just in case anyone tries to peek or even jump down there. 40 seconds remaining on the clock. There's a nice kill from Miracle straight onto Pino. Just walk down the stairs and get the kill. Don't need to worry about C4s. You can still hear that pre-placed one clicking away on the ceiling.
I really worry that Miracle's going to jump out of that window, and I worry that there's a Claymore at the bottom of it. There's only 20 seconds remaining, and Miracle, the smoke player, is all the way on the top floor. What in the world is going on? Muzi, he had some troubles with the Banshee. Eventually, he'll be able to take it on down. You hate to see it. The smoke canister clipped, and it's hit between the joists, unable to get through and detonate. Now he's really left his team in a bit of a tough spot. Miracle, you've got to try and rotate all the way on down. Rare finds the final frag. Furia clutching up in a big way in what was a very scrappy end to the round for NIP.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, Furia made that defense actually kind of hard to deal with, especially with Miracle. Yes, he was the smoke, and running around on the top floor is maybe not where you'd expect your smoke to typically be that late into a round or ever. But NIP didn't have a ton of focus on the top floor, if any, so it meant that he was pretty much safe. And when he came down to Piano and got the kill onto Pino, did NIP expect that? The answer's probably not. And then because of the way that the holes in the floor had been set up, he could send the Toxic Babe canister down. Now, I think he was probably hoping it would land all the way in the basement and go through both sets of bars. It didn't quite land there, but of course smoke can, travel through those holes, so didn't kill anyone. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And the ring around a Rosie around the white van, I wondered if that was going to end in NIP's favor just because of the positional advantage they had and knowing where the players from Furia were. But you're in the middle of the site, you get caught in a crossfire. It was very messy, limited time, limited information. And Furia found the victory for it. I don't know if it's one that you can guarantee can be replicated going forward. So when they eventually return to Garage, if they do, we will see if that happens. But for now, we're moving on to the next.
It certainly plants the seed in NIP's mind that they need to be a bit more thorough on that roam clear. And it could buy them a little bit more time on the defense. So likely to see maybe a bit more of an extended clear the next time NIP are attacking downstairs. But for the meanwhile, we've moved on. Now, Furia have opted for split sites here. So, splits between the first floor and the basement. Not a site that we saw NIP go to. And it's a site that teams... It's kind of a bit of a Marmite site. It's definitely a tertiary site. Teams either love it or they hate it. Rarely is it picked first. Seldom second, and pretty much always a good third choice. Teams often get caught out again on time here because there are just so many different ways that you can try and approach it. In the meantime, the approach is coming through very aggressively as Muzi's going to find that frag onto Fantasy. Fantasy not having the best of days so far. Gets himself taken out on that top floor.
I think it was partially a matter of timing because it was right as he turned around and maybe not expecting to see Muzi there, but ultimately it doesn't matter. If you get the kill, you get the kill. And NIP can walk away with that. But Muzi being taken off as the first death for NIP, I think that's quite big as well. Muzi has had a decent day so far. He's provided a lot of value for NIP. I nearly said for Furia. Not quite. And, I mean, look at this. Furia still have, defensive control of Visa. Now, Lender could find himself getting punished because this is a very, very open place to be defending. There are the windows in here. You've got the door as well. If Pino, for example, can catch someone out, maybe a bit like that, suddenly Lender's on his own here in Visa. He's got to watch out for multiple angles. Even though he wasn't killed at this point, he's going to get droned out. They're probably going to find him.
Lender goes for the drop. The information available here for NIP. The red pings coming on in. Eyes puts a few shots down, but slowly but surely, NIP are really restricting the movement of these players on the side of Furia, and they're forcing them back further and further. Lender, huge kill over onto Julio. Going to do a lot to remove the Jackal, remove that ability to track, remove the smokes. And as we enter the 40-second mark, all of those things could be quite important. We can hear the plank going down, and Miracle has the heads up, manages to put some shots in to deter Kamikaze from sticking it for now. Miracle also moves on to find another 2 kills. That's going to render the diffuser cold on the ground. Pino, he has to aggress. He hasn't got time to pick this diffuser up. He's got 20 seconds. He's got live information. He's just taken out the default camera. Everybody is going to know where he is. Looking to pre-fire fairly desperately through the soft wall. But Furia aren't giving anything up. Lender and Miracle, they're looking to waste the clock. They know there's only 7 seconds that they need to waste. But no, Miracle goes for the peak. There's 3 seconds left. This is doable for Pino. But no, Miracle. He steps up when his team need him the most. Finding 3 kills inside of that round. That puts Furia in the lead.
Yeah, I mean, Miracle went for the old-time strategy there of don't peek and you won't be found. Which
He needs to teach that one to Lender.
I think he does. Not that it mattered in the end, although Pino did know he was in there. So that last one could have gone either way. I think it was just a matter of Miracle having the faster reaction time in that instance. But it is one of those things that you see a lot of teams trip and fall because they peak when they don't need to. And we have spoken about it so far in the BR6 a couple of times. I would have really liked to have seen Lender not do that. At the end of the day, Furia put another round on the board, evening things out between the two teams. So when it looked like NIP were actually starting to run away with a number of those rounds on the first half, that has already been evened out. No advantage directly either way. So now we're seeing Furia go to CEO, which was the primary site for NIP, and it was the one that NIP struggled to defend the hardest. They're also doing the similar thing where they don't bring a Jaeger, but what you do sometimes find for teams that are defending this site, especially if they are defending towards yellow stairs, is instead of bringing a Jaeger and having ADSs placed, they will bring a Rook so that they can provide armor to the rest of the team, and that will provide them with a bit more safety against the projectiles that could come in through the skylight on yellow stairs instead of ADSs. There is a Wamai, so that can still help with projectiles. The likelihood is you're more likely to see maybe one Wamai disc be placed in yellow stairs and the others be placed in meeting.
I really have a problem with the Rook. It's an entirely personal thing, but I feel like there's other things. I don't know. I think I got spawn peaked early on. It's just one of those things where I just feel there's so much more that you could be bringing to the table. We'll see how much of an impact it does have. There are a couple of nades on the side of NIP, but only a couple, so Pino's going to have to be pretty good with those. The things that you really want to be worried about are these Toxic Babe canisters. One of the nades is going to fly in through into Connector. Going to remove anyone from being sat in there, but it doesn't exactly have the impact that you would expect it to have. Fantasy! Some aggression there, using the bionic arm to immediately destroy the reinforcement. Takes down Pino, and with it, the grenades.
Wanted Fantasy to show up. That was a pretty good kill from him. And removing the sledge as well. Big kill. Now there's 2, make that 3 going to be coming in from NIP. They've moved straight into meeting at this point. If they can get Kamikaze in, then he's basically free to plant. Although, Fantasy from downstairs says otherwise, getting the kill onto Psycho from below. You still have Lender holding control of Bathroom. He might be able to get a crossfire over into meeting. And with Fantasy downstairs, maybe this isn't quite as simple as just having control of meeting itself.
Julio is going to be able to place out some utility. Kamikaze with the frag. Fancy has to push through the fire. Questions need to be asked there. NIP come away with the round and edge themselves a lead, but how was Psycho allowed to just walk on into sight?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question, isn't it?
It'll be a question for another day. Maybe we'll get a glimpse in the replays as to just exactly what went on there, but it was a very quick round from NIP. They saw an advantage, they took it, and it has given them a lead. 1 round away from match point now.
It's been a very close game as well, and this week has certainly proven to be a much more of a chore for NIP. There we go. There's Psycho just walking in.
Well, he just walks up main stairs.
I mean, I guess you can't do something like that without information. You know, you're working off of information, and if you know where the positions of those players are, then yeah, sure, you can walk through a rotate hole and get both of them, as long as you can aim. Which is why mere mortals like me wouldn't be able to do that. But it's not that crazy to imagine a team that has information and good aim be able to do it. The problem there is the fact that FURIA they hadn't out informationed them, you know? You should know if someone's about to walk through the rotate from long desk into meeting. There should be someone holding long desk, and there wasn't. So, problem for FURIA. They're going back downstairs though, which was a round that or site that they won back in round number 7, but it was quite close and messy.
Lender going for a little cheeky spawn peek there to see if there's anything that he can gain. It was a messy round. It was the round where we saw Miracle all the way up on that top floor as the smoke. We could potentially see that again. Fancy got himself a very particular angle looking toward main door, I think, but the focus initially for NIP is to get this garage door open. Often they'll rotate off that once they've done that task, and they'll then look to pressure inside of Piano. We do have a hop-in coming in from Pino, but he will get sat down by Rare. SMG-11 headshot, beautiful stuff.
Okay, I certainly like that one, and that's one of the downsides to trying to swing into a room while also going for a kill at the same time. Your crosshair is going to move, and something like that could happen. The Toxic Vape canisters are going to act as a deterrent, but Psycho's not going to be stopped from trying to take the shots in. Don't know if they've yet been able to remove the denial that's been preventing them to opening up the second half of the door, and the answer to that seems to be no. Don't know if there's anyone directly above them. I don't think so. Actually, all 3 of them are out here, so no, there isn't anyone directly above them. Finally, they can finish opening up the garage door, however, and this is NIP's cue to begin moving in.
Still plenty of denial available, although I say that Miracle will find himself taken on down. Instantly traded by Lender. FURIA maintaining this advantage. There's an eternity of time left. 1 minute 15 seconds. So much to work with. Still utility available here. The Psycho and Julio as an EMP is going to be thrown on through. The diffuser hasn't been recovered here. Instead, Psycho's just going to be looking for kills. Julio finds one, but Lender, he has had so many trades this round, and he picks up the final kill. 4 kills on the round for Lender. What a huge round from him. FURIA respond yet again. This game has got overtime written all over it.
I could see that happening. I could definitely see that happening. And that would be really fun as well. I like it. I love the idea as well that NIP, their hardest opponent so far in Stage 2, wasn't the guys that they went every single map with in the SI Grand Finals. It was the team that no one expected to get to SI and have actually turned out to be really good. I love that. I mean, FURIA, even though they've been performing really well, I think you could still say they kind of sit in an underdog position. Of the top 6 teams, they're probably the one that you would expect to be in 6th.
I think that's fair. They're a team that are continuing to surprise us.
Yeah.
And that's one of the more exciting things about FURIA. You know, you do look toward sort of their result inside of week 1, and you think, you know, yeah, they did lose to Team 1, so they're not that team that's, you know, incapable of taking a loss. By no means are they undefeated, but they do have that sort of underdog streak in them where they can come up against a team like NIP and really give them a good game on a map that NIP are fairly well known for.
I guess the next round will... I don't even want to say it'll give us information to know how it's going to go going forward, because it doesn't necessarily, because round 12 could be completely different. What we do know is that NIP did struggle to attack onto this site in round 8. NIP have historically not been that great at attacking onto this site. Nice 2 kills coming straight in pretty early. Muzi was like the first one to die for NIP last time they were attacking here.
Yeah, Muzi's kill tally hasn't really increased all too much since getting onto the attack, but his death tally really has. He's suffering at the hands of that entry. You do kind of worry for the side of Furia as well, losing Miracle. He's been such a key player. And it puts a bit more pressure on the others, and of course, Lender to make something happen. Psycho, he's able to find out his second kill of the round. It's Fantasy getting caught being a little bit too aggressive again.
That's been something that's hurt Furia a couple of rounds. Now it's relative silence for now as NIP assess their options. What they want to do, most likely, is to be able to push into the Teller's site and be able to plant in there rather than relying on having to get kills down in Archives, which is where Pino failed last time. The problem is you have to do a lot of clearing out to actually have access to Tellers. Lender's playing in there now. Last time he was playing over in Visa, so it was a lot more open than where he is now, but he still has to be removed regardless if NIP are going to get a plant off in here.
Drones are going to come in and gather that information. Lender eventually shutting it down, but the info has been gathered for now. Goes for the C4 that was pre-placed in an attempt. There's still a lot of time remaining here. Lender's made a rotation upstairs and managed to find the kill over onto Pino. Going to alleviated that vertical pressure. As we can see, the remaining members of NIP are now thinking we've got to go downstairs. There's no chance we can plant inside of Tellers. We've lost vertical control, and there's a chance that Lender has retaken it. But little do they know, Lender's still going to have vertical control, but he's going to be inside of Tellers anyway. Psycho, he's going to be upstairs holding on to the cross. 27 seconds left. Kamikaze, he takes down Rare. That's going to do a lot to open things up. Highs, got to move on through now and look to start taking down these players. Lender, he has the vertical options here, and Psycho trying to cover the plant as it is going to be confirmed. Lender, he drops the hatch, finds the final two. All we got to do now is find that diffuser and disable it. No problem whatsoever. An eternity of time left to disable that plant. Furia pull themselves onto a match point.
Ollie, what if this is it? What if this is where NIP face their first ever loss? Because if they're going to win here, they have to do it in overtime now.
I didn't want to curse this one on the way in, Gio.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm like with Furia. And I try and
you're
keep...
You're a little fanboy.
I tried on it, I'll be honest. But it's very difficult when they're this exciting to watch.
They are so exciting to watch. Because they always have something to offer. And that's not saying that NIP don't, but we know, like for years, we have known what NIP are. Everybody has known NIP as this really vicious force that kind of, you know, pervades through not just Brazil, but the global Rainbow Six world. But Furia are new, relatively, and they are kind of this thing, this entity that's moving through, and people are like, we should probably pay attention to them. You know, give it a year, where are Furia going to be?
That's what scares me the most, is the thought and the prospect of this Furia roster continuing to put the work in, regardless of the result today. Just the game that we've seen up until this point and the rounds that we've seen played, sure, it hasn't been perfect. There has been mistakes. But when they get to a point where they're making like a liquid level of mistakes or an NIP level of mistakes, then that's when things start to get really dangerous. And that's when you do start to wonder, where are Furia going to be in 6-12 months time? You know, are they going to make it to next SI? And if so, what's going to be the placement there? Like, are they going to make it to the major? And if so, how are they going to stack? That's where it really starts to get interesting.
Well, this next round is going to tell us how it's going to be here. Either Furia take the victory in regulation against NIP, giving NIP their first loss of this stage, or NIP are going to force Furia into overtime, and we keep battling it out until a victor is finally named. So far, all 10 men are standing. We're returning to CEO, which NIP won. In fact, it's the only round, the only site that NIP have won against Furia across the 5 sites that have been visited so far. So this could be NIP about to force FURIA into overtime, in which case, who the hell knows what's going to happen. But they're going to have to recreate the success of round number 9 if they're to do it.
I enjoy how FURIA is still looking to try and contend on these sort of outside angles as well. We've got Miracle looking to chance his arm at getting some little shots out there and providing a bit of pressure. Muzi could be seeing some challenge here at the bottom of yellow stairs. Oh, Pino. He had one of those moments where he was like, no, I'm getting run out on. And it was actually his teammate. You could almost see the panic. He's going to take his time to gather a little bit of intel on the drone, but a C4 going to see quickly to that is not going to be the case. Nice nade comes on through, though. Not only does it take down Miracle, it puts Highs down to 1 HP.
Psycho! No!
Highs, 1 HP or not?
As soon as he turned around!
1 HP or not, he's going to be able to find the frag. Highs. He could continue to do damage here, Gio.
I mean, yeah, he could. Look, the first round had Highs on 1 HP and he died as a result. This is him moving up to the next level, but with Rare dying and Highs as well on top of that, it doesn't look like it's going to be the round for FURIA. Fantasy could get something, but with so many windows present on Consulate, he finds a death too. That means that we are going to overtime, Ollie, and the game continues.
All the way. Round 13 coming at you. 6-6, and we do see FURIA get the defense. Now, that could be quite crucial. FURIA are able to go down to Garage, a site that they've won a couple of times now. Give them a nice little edge here inside of this OT. We certainly need to see something different from NIP here, because the way that they have been approaching Garage up until this point hasn't really been working all too well for them. Is a knock the answer to that question, Gio?
I mean, it is funny to me that this has been a defender-sided Consulate.
Yeah.
It's not every day you see one of those.
It isn't.
I would like to see Nook being a cool answer. I suspect that if they are bringing Nook, then what they could do is sneak down behind the site, you know, whether you're coming in through Spiral, whether you're coming down service stairs, come in from the archives side of the basement, and then maybe perform an assassination or two in kitchen. That would be kind of cool, because one of the things that has lacked in these basement attacks has been kind of a two-pronged approach. And usually the two-pronged approach of a basement attack involves vertical and horizontal. It doesn't necessarily involve coming in from the back of the site, but it can do. And that hasn't been something that's been tried in this game, and I'm not sure that FURIA would expect it.
Question is, what are FURIA expecting? Fancy playing the Vigil this time. He's not really had a lot of success out there on the roam. Likely going to come head-to-head with that knock, and, well, instead he's going to come head-to-head with Pino. What a big kill here for FURIA to be able to gain. Not only is it the grenades, but it's so much of that soft destruction that we saw NIP use to pressure FURIA earlier on. Rare's now moved himself up into Piano as well, as that's an area that can essentially be retaken, and you can now look to try and work vertically onto the attackers that are coming on in.
Well, there's the gadget of the Nook that's being used. Wonder if they have any idea of what it is the Psycho's doing yet. He is preparing himself in front of the garage here, so it could be that he's just going to walk straight in and actually get the plant going or something like that, but Kamikaze's the one holding onto the diffuser. He's just making his way straight into the site, looking for anyone that he might be able to bring down. Miracle's going to be the first victim. Can he find a second? If he can get his way into kitchen, he may be able to get one, but Kamikaze is the next one to perform a kill. Lender being brought down. Fantasy losing so much health and finally DBNO'd. Right now, it looks like NIP have so much control of this attack. Psycho with 2, Kamikaze to finish up. NIP, after all their issues with attack, they make it look very clean on round number 13.
Psycho looked like something out of a film. Like, special super agent Nook reporting for duty, just moving on through off the back of drone information. And because of how silent Nook is able to move on through, and obviously the ability to hide from the cameras, that is something that is just going to have caused so much confusion on the side of FURIA. NIP winning the round off the back of that. I asked at the start of the round, Gio, if the knock was going to be the difference maker, if that was the answer to the different approach we needed to see NIP bring, and well, we found it there. Psycho gave it to us in black and white. The answer was yes. That has put them on a match point once again, an overtime match point. Now the pressure is firmly on FURIA here to perform and to win downstairs in Garage, take us all the way.
Okay. So looking back at NIP's track record on their Garage defenses, round number 2, successfully defended. Round number 5, successfully defended. Right. There was a big upstairs focus as well on round number 5, where most of the fights that were happening, I don't think FURIA even touched the site in that round. NIP had quite a strong upstairs defense and ensured that all of the fights were basically happening on either the top floor or the first floor. So it's important that FURIA don't get caught up in that if they do the same thing again, because it wasted so much time. They lost a lot of members. And then, what? You get no closer to the objective. So I would, if you're FURIA, you certainly don't want that to be the way you're dragged this time.
No, not at all. And FURIA are going to be hitting a bit of a mental dip as well, seeing as that they missed out on the overtime. Then it got taken to... Sorry, missed out on converting the 6 into a 7 and getting the full 3 points. Then they lose the first round in OT. There's not really too much going in their favour at the moment. Now they're on attacking Garage where they've struggled previously. You do start to wonder how much that's going to weigh down on them. The wall has been open though, which is always a fantastic start. Fantasy kind of aggressive on the yellow stairs, looking to push down. No one really pushing from the admin side at all, and Psycho recognizing that is just going to barricade it off for the time being. There's a lot of utility being thrown on through. Rare aggressively pushes on in, but you just get the feeling that they're going to get cut on down, and that's exactly what FURIA tried to show. A little bit of a flair, a little bit of aggression, and it hasn't worked out for them. Pino will fall. That could be...
They're helping FURIA out.
Pretty crucial. Kamikaze's playing for the other side at the moment. Highs. He just needs that to happen a few more times. Swoop in, find another kill, and he'll be alright. But the reality of this situation is that Highs is in a bit of a tough spot. He's currently 1 versus 4. Sure, there's so much time remaining, but the diffuser's on the site. Cold and unplanted. And let's not forget, this is match point. Gonna try and push his way down Spiral now. We know, because we saw it earlier, that that door to his right is in fact barricaded, which is going to cut off a little bit of line of sight. There is going to be a little bit of a gap in there, and finds himself 1 for free. We chain it together here. The G8 is good, but it isn't that good. Muzi, he comes around with the swing. NIP, despite the odds, it didn't look easy for them there tonight. They are able to take the game. It is inside of overtime, but they managed to come away with it again.
Yeah,
4 games, 4 wins.
FURIA came very close to being able to take NIP, and this was by far and away the most challenging game that NIP had to face throughout Stage 2 so far in the first 4 play days, but they could pull it through at the very end. And I feel like NIP just have this way of when they know they're in danger and when they know that they could be about to lose, they just suddenly switch and they pull everything off perfectly. Those last 2 rounds look way cleaner than a number of rounds, especially in the last half of that game. And yeah, they secured themselves a victory. It might not have been the regulation victory they were after, but it was a victory nonetheless.